June 2024. We can get Enid to come to order. We'll be ready to start. Thank you. Thank you, man. Welcome, everyone. Super excited. John, I'm sorry you weren't here to actually see the physical model, but man, thank you.
I did get to see it, and Mr. Stoner also sent me a couple of photos, so I am excited.
Very good. Calling the meeting to order again at 1:35 p.m. June 20, 2024. The quarterly meeting of the full board, Delaware State University Board of Trustees. Welcome, everyone. Ms. Stoner, are you prepared to proceed with the roll call?
Yes, I am, Mr. Chairman.
Proceed, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Board of Trustees meeting on today, Thursday, June the 20th, 2024. The Board of Trustees is chaired by Chairman Leroy Tice. Joining us today on the Board of Trustees are the following: Vice Chair, Dr. Debbie Harrington, Vice Chair John Allen virtually, Trustee John Ridgway, Trustee Norman Griffiths, Trustee Bernadette Dorsey Watley, Trustee Dr. Wilma Michoud, Trustee Chip Rossi will be joining virtually, Trustee William Collick, and soon to be sworn in trustees, Trustee Dr. Janice Nevin, and Trustee James Collins. We are also joined by our foundation president and chair, that is Miss Enid Wallace Sims. We are joined by the 12th president of Delaware State University, Dr. Tony Allen, and members of the Administrative Council. Dr. Sandra DeLauder, Provost, VP and Chief Academic Officer, Dr. Irene Hawkins, Executive Vice President, Chief Administrative Officer, and VP of Human Resources, Mr. Anas Minati, VP and Chief Financial Officer, Dr. Vita Pickram, Vice President of Institutional Advancement and DSU Foundation President, Ms. Lucretia Moultrie, General Counsel, VP and Chief Enterprise Risk Officer, Ms. Jackie Griffith, VP of Government and Community Relations and Chief of Staff, Mr. Darrell McMillan, VP and Chief Information Officer, Mr. Bernard Pratt, AVP of Capital Planning, Construction, Facilities, and Housing Management, Dr. Alicia Gadsden, Director of Athletics, Dr. Dawn Mosley, Senior AVP of Marketing and Communications, Mr. Tony Tucker, Senior AVP of Athletics in the Early College School. We're also joined by one of our deans, Dean Gwen Scott Jones. Our technician for today is Kyle Spalding. We are also joined by some folks in the room, some representatives from the university, staff, and faculty members. And we will ask that you, as people come in, that you will circulate the sign-in sheet so that we can have a record of your attendance. And that concludes our roll call at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Secretary Stoner. Next, we have a very, hey, Chip, we see your face, sir. Good to see you. We have a very important business matter to address, and that is the swearing in of two new trustees. I want to thank Trustee Norman Griffiths and his work on the governance committee in this regard, getting to the point where we could bring on Dr. Janice Nevin and Mr. James Collins. I had the opportunity yesterday to speak to some young adjudicated men at the Newcastle County Detention Center for Juneteenth, and I told him that, we talk about Delaware State, it's just that place down in Dover. I think is the way some people see it, but I told them first and foremost, this is an institution of 133 years in the making. And an institution is not the bricks and mortar. I mean, you go from, I guess, 90 acres or so we purchased with that 8,095 acres to now over 300 acres. All of that is wonderful. Institution is its people. And everyone around this table has a Delaware State University connection, some of them very, very storied connections to my right here. And of course, the contributions of other folks who are around the table. And I've been here for a little while on the board, and I've witnessed all the contributions by the folks around this table. The governor at his one and only, I think, state dinner, which somehow our president motivated that undertaking, spoke about his appointment of folks to boards and how, that was really, really a prominent role for him as governor. And I think he's got about 400 appointments or so, or a little bit less than that. So again, thank you, Trustee Griffiths, for your work. You're welcome, Mr. Chair. We welcome two wonderful folks up to the front of the room to be a part of the institutional work that is Delaware State University. Carlos, can you go first? Carlos, how would you direct that?
I'm gonna come around this way.
Very good. You'll get to know that Carlos makes us stand in the proper way.
One other things.
He also tells us our history or disinformation. Mr. Holmes.
Mr. Holmes, right.
I'm sure. And swearing in the, should I read both? Okay. Well, Delaware State University, Dover, Delaware. Greetings. Know you. Special trust and confidence in your knowledge, integrity, and prudence. And ability. The members of the Board of Trustees of Delaware State University have constituted and elected by each presents do constitute a James L. Collins, CIO, IIT, to be a member of the Board of Trustees of Delaware State University, located in Delaware, for an unexpired term to begin on March 20, 2024, and end on May 29, 2025. You are entitled to hold, exercise, and enjoy the said office as a member of the Board of Trustees of Delaware State University. The terms set forth above, in which you faithfully discharge the responsibility of that office. Now the oath of office. Repeat after me, sir. I, James L. Collins, CIO, MS.
I, James L. Collins.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support the Constitution of the United States.
I will support the Constitution of the United States.
And the Constitution of the State of Delaware.
The Constitution of the State of Delaware.
And that I will faithfully discharge the duties.
And I will faithfully discharge the duties
of the office as a member of the Board of Trustees
of the office of member of the Board of Trustees
of Delaware State University,
Delaware State University,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Next, Dr. Janice Nuggets. Greetings. Know you that reposing special trust and confidence in your knowledge, integrity, prudence, and ability, the members of the Board of Trustees of Delaware State University have constituted and elected, and by these presents to constitute and elect you, Janice E. Nevins, MD, MPH, a lot of letters. Our folks were to be a member of the Board of Trustees of Delaware State University, located in Trustees County, Delaware, for an unexpired term to begin on March 28, 2024, and end on November 15, 2024. You are entitled to hold, exercise, and enjoy said office as a member of the Board of Trustees of Delaware State University for and during which you faithfully discharge the responsibilities of that office. Now the oath of office. Repeat after me, ma'am, please. I, Janice E. Nevin, MD, MPH,
I, Janice E.
do solemnly swear
solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Delaware,
and the Constitution of the State of Delaware,
and I will faithfully discharge
and faithfully discharge
the duties of the office
the duties of the office
as a member of the Board of Trustees
as a member of the Board of Trustees
of Delaware State University,
of Delaware State University,
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
Please note that I learned from giving the the first time I've been broken down.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry, James. Please, round of applause, please. Welcome, welcome, welcome. And I can only hope, in all sincerity, that you find your work here with us as meaningful as I believe we all do. Consent agenda is next. Trust that you have all had the opportunity to review first in order the meeting minutes, pardon me, of March 28, 24, and of the special meeting that we held on April 15, 2024. We also have the approval of, pardon me, guess we'll need an actual motion for the approval of the minutes from March 28, 2024. The full assembly will hear a motion for approval of those minutes.
Chair, I move that we approve them.
Where's my general counsel?
And
25.
approve the entire consent agenda.
Okay, very good, very good. Thank you, General Counsel. Next would be the approval of the committee reports and action items from committees, academic and student success, request to plan, Doctor of Business Administration, PhD, interdisciplinary data sciences, and to request to implement the associates in textile and apparel studies. That is an associate, correct me if I'm wrong. Thank you. And apparel studies with is that a concentration in color, design, and technology? Pardon me for not knowing the acronyms. Right now, the full assembly will consider a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Is there another issue?
I move, no, sir.
Okay, sorry.
It's a lot. I move to accept or to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second. All right, any discussion required? All voting in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thank you, and the consent agenda is now a part of the permanent record. Next on the agenda is the chair's report, which I promised to keep very brief. And my comments flow, I'm with you, Dr. Mashu, now about the air conditioning. Wasn't before. Now
Thank you.
I think we're working on it. And as chair, obviously we meet as an executive leadership team with the president and some of his directs as he so directs. And I just generally bring some of the ESPN highlights from our discussion so as to make sure that everyone on this assembly is aware of what we are discussing with the administration. Again, in the spirit of a democratic process with no silos. First off, and typically I'll try to keep it to three, and I think that's fitting for this particular report. First was the athletic transformation. We talked to the administration about, and frankly, it's my interest in the discussion flowed from the athletics committee meeting that was held. And stating the obvious, if you were not on that meeting, the meeting was about athletics transformation and certain questions that arose around athletics transformation. Questions that I would characterize as concerning status and the posture of what I think Steve Ewing aptly calls a conceptualization of what it is that we're doing in athletics. Permit me briefly to say this too, and just picking up on Steve's comments during his talk, because he talked about mindset. I don't know that he intentionally tried to inspire certain thoughts, but I think anytime you invoke mindset, you inspire some thinking about, particularly when you consider transformation. What is the transformational mindset? And if you look at mindset, I think we're considering what you're seeing, thinking, and believing about a certain topic. Some folks have been connected to this university for a long time, as I stated earlier, storied and otherwise. We have graduates from the 70s on this board. We have folks who have, again, grew up on this campus as children. And thinking about transformational thinking around athletics, again, the way we are seeing, thinking, and behaving, I think is going to be an anxious process for everybody. We have been talking about, and to invoke some Spanish, it's been more like la fantasía. It's more like a fantasy around athletics, not really a reality. Even the conversations about athletics, I think, were more fantasy thinking and talking. And now we're going beyond, I think, fantasy into the realities of transformation. And as Steve said, it requires, to some extent, looking at our mindset, the way we think about athletics. And we started that in December, frankly, at the retreat. And I just encouraged every single member of this assembly to talk about what is your personal mindset around athletics. For 2 decades, at least, there was conversation about a convocation center. There were transfers of land. There were actually monies allocated to investigate the prospects, right? And here we are 2 decades later, and now we are moving, I think, again, away from fantasy to actually realizing athletic transformation. So what's my point? My point is, I wanted to encourage the administration to listen to the questions that are being asked around athletics. And obviously, there's a distinction between hearing and listening. My request was that they listen with a view towards synthesis with the board. And by synthesis, I mean listen to the questions, which I think therein lies the anxieties or concerns, and make sure that we are apprised at every step of the process in a way so that the anxieties around the newness of this kind of endeavor can be alleviated to some extent. And I see Anas down there sweating, and Anas is going to have to answer the questions about finance and so forth, project costs, carrying costs, and all those wonderful things, so that the board has assurances that at every hallmark event, the board is fully informed, and then, of course, when it's time to vote on such a transformational part of our existence, then the board's going to feel comfortable, at least voting, however they vote. They're going to feel comfortable that they have the information at the time necessary. So I wanted to capture that, and that's what we talked about in that meeting. The next thing we talked about was committees, and I just wanted to, this was in a ramp up to the board retreat that we're scheduling, and I'll talk about the board retreat lastly. But just letting you know, as my peers, that I'm reviewing the matrix, and I'm also listening to you too. I'm not hearing you. I'm listening to you about how best to utilize your precious resources, which are time and energies, and how to focus them on really, as the president might say, the main thing. And that is our top strategic priorities. I want to focus your time on our top strategic priorities. I want to make sure we're doing that in an agile manner. And again, I'm listening to you. And your cues to me, frankly, are verbal and nonverbal around how many committees you're on and how much work you have to do or not. Stop acting up, Dr. Michelle. I'm not talking about you specific, at least not yet. But Dr. Michelle gets the point. I mean, you know, I'm not talking about your other jobs. but some folks are retired, some folks are up, some folks are not. Some folks are busy and retired. Enid, I'm looking at you as well when I say that. So we just want to be mindful of the time spent, is my point. And I just wanted to let you know that I hear your verbal cues and nonverbal cues around that. And anything I suggest with respect to committees is not sua sponte. Sorry about the Latin, but that means on my own. And it's not ipsy dixit because I said so. It's because I'm listening to my peers. And again, I'm always open to listening. And by the way, please tell me if you have a desire for a committee, if you feel like you're being overutilized or underutilized. You agree with that, Chairman Griffiths? Of the governance committee? And trust me, Chairman Griffiths has his finger on the pulse of what's going on with committees and so forth. And he keeps us very honest on the needs of the board in that regard. The last thing is the board retreat. Again, discussions at the board retreat with the help of artist Cohen, who I think you know, who's been affiliated with AGB, and is absolutely an expert on all things strategic related to board activities and also the principles of trusteeship. The pace of higher ed is what we're going to be talking about. And going back to athletics, I'm reminded about, there's probably, is Dr. Gadsden behind me? Yeah, there's probably, you know, if you look at athletics, I don't think that there's a greater indicator of the pace of change in higher ed, which again, I think speaks to the need for athletic transformation in a facilities perspective. But in all of higher ed, I think we need to talk about the pace of change and how we continue to try to capture as much market share as possible, but in a fiscally responsible way, guided by folks who really stress test our finances. Chair, Trustee Ridgway, along with the NAS and the rest of you who keep us really thinking, I think, on the horizon about what our finances are going to look like, and thinking beyond Delaware State University, how we are positioned in that. So that's my report. Those were my discussions in a nutshell with the administration. Any questions of me before we move to the president? Thank you. Mr. President. Thank you, sir. President's report. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good, sir.
This will be the one and only time that I'll have some slides that have former President Trump in them. But it is reflective. It was reflective of the headline about our graduation, which was above the fold in the News Journal in May. So turn your attention specifically to those graduates and not the former president. As I said, at that time, we experienced the largest graduation in Delaware State University's history. Again, that's the third year in a row we've done that. More importantly, we've had the highest cumulative GPA, which says a lot about our students and what they are accomplishing. So I want to make sure that you understand that in addition to our growth prospects in traditional undergraduate and graduate learning. A lot of this has to do with what we're doing internationally and online, and you'll see more of that as we move forward. Today, I wanted to do something slightly different and turn your attention to the budget for FY25. My desire is to have Anas go through that budget with you now, and then during the operations committee, have your questions addressed in detail and hopefully make a motion for approval. Before I bring Anas up, though, yeah, do that one. Thank you. Before I bring Anas up, though, I wanted to just level set us again. So we have about 5 big items that we were dealing with in 2024 and as we meet the challenges of 2025. The first is margin compression. Remember that our margins are small, but we've had a multi-year effort based on your votes, both around increasing our tuition and repricing some of our housing stock as well. That is proving useful and will continue to prove useful. The second one is tuition discounting. And for Dr. Nevin and Mr. Collins, I wanted you to make sure that when we talk about tuition discounting, you will often hear this notion of institutional resources being put toward student scholarships. We have done a lot of that. That gives us an opportunity to really attract students in the right way over a long period of time and increases our quality of those students. However, we believe that we need to reduce that buy box for a couple of reasons. One, we have a full tuition scholarship sponsored by the state now called Inspire. That does a significant job for us. In fact, last year, 79% of all incoming freshmen were Inspire scholars. So it's very, very important to us in that regard. 2, we believe that we need to set the right frame for the institutional resources we provide to those students versus making sure that we're encouraging them to get scholarships around the country and certainly at state and federal level. And we believe we've done that. You will see in this budget for the first time that we fully budgeted for our tuition discount, our merit aid. That's significant. We have not done that in many, many years. Third, we have some expense obligations. We're completing the payouts for CBAs. Just to give you some context, we signed 4 CBAs at one time this year, which I believe is a marker for us. But it does suggest that we're able to have the right kind of labor relations with our staff. We believe that those CBAs are good for the university and good for the employees there. And we've been able to implement a 3% increase for non-union employees making under $100,000. So you'll see that as well. Fourth is our increased state support. This is huge. We'll talk about this a little later, but we believe that we are about $15 million on balance short from our state appropriations from the state, 15 million. So we just started making that case to this semester, and it has proved meritorious. The Joint Finance Committee has already put in an additional $5 million to our base for next year. Very important. It does not happen very often. And we believe that we can get an additional $3 to $5 million for one-time support, but specifically for Wesley College of Health and Behavioral Sciences. Why is that important? Because it sets us up for the conversation with the new governor for FY26. And then lastly is our cash flow. What I'm proud to say is I think we had a $7.5 million bogey going into the year. Is that right, Dennis? We believe we will end this fiscal year with a $3.5 million cash position to the good, which means we cut expenses in the right way, made the right decisions, and landed the plane safely. In addition, we have enhanced our reserves about $17 million, which is important as well, and have developed a significant treasury management process of about $20 million. So we're not out of the woods yet, but we have really built some capacity that we had not done in many, many years. So before I bring Anas up, any questions?
Well, Mr. President, a third one, the collective bargaining agreements, the CBAs,
Yes.
they all end at the same time? Usually they're staggered. You know, they're not going to all end on the same date. I mean, how did that happen to complete payout?
A lot of it had to do with delays in the negotiations.
Oh, I didn't think. Oh.
Yep. Other questions?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure I heard the question completely, but Was your question when they end as well?
Well, it says completing payout for collective bargaining agreements, the CBAs. And I was wondering, how does that happen? They don't all end on the same day. They have different
They,
ending dates,
they were negotiated at the same time.
but they were negotiated at the same time.
They were negotiated.
And that's really just a timing issue. I mean,
It's just that.
mhm.
And they will term out, I believe, pretty much all in 2026, maybe one in 2027.
Gotcha.
So we'll be back here, again.
Okay. It never ends.
Did you say Trustee Rossi? Trustee Rossi?
Yeah, sorry. Sorry I can't be there with you in person today. Trust me, I wish I was with all of you versus some of the here. But just a comment, more importantly, having had the opportunity to go through this work earlier with Anas and Bernadette as part of the operations committee, and to see the journey that we've been on these last 2 to 3 years, I would just say to you, Mr. President, and to Anas, just the tough decisions that you all have brought to the table that have really made some tremendous headway on some challenges we've had fiscally should be commended. I know we're going to discuss it here, but they weren't easy decisions because we're talking about families and students. But when you pull all this together, we're setting ourselves up for sustainability and just a lot of good work by the team. So I just want to start there.
Thank you, Trustee Rossi. And I would just add that in addition to my leadership team, Dan Thompson, who's our controller, has been exceptional in helping us land this plane and prepare for the future. So with that, I'll turn it over to Anas.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So, as President Allen mentioned, we will talk about fiscal year 25. That was just a little preview. But before we get there, let me just address fiscal year 24 and how we are closing the fiscal year 24, which is literally in 2 weeks. Keep in mind that we will talk about the booked position and then the cash position. Also keep in mind that fiscal 24 will be closed by date on 6/30. However, we will continue to book beyond that. So this is the budget that was approved by the board, I believe, June 27th of last year. And as was mentioned, and most of you will recall, because of the merit aid that we were not able to fully fund, we created the productivity saving or a bogey or a challenge of 7.6 million. What does it do really is, if you read the bottom of the budget, is 156.8 million, but in reality, what you have is 156.8 million on the revenue and 164 point something million on the expense side. So it was on us to take the revenues that we know from the get-go, they're going to be less than what you have as a starting point on the expense side and make it work. Meaning that the merit aid, we knew we will end at 18.519 million. So what it does is it put pressure on mostly these lines here to deliver the saving. That's number one, and or on the revenue to generate more revenue to deliver that gap there. And I'll walk you through it a little bit. So where we are right now, as of April 30th, when we took the picture, we are at about 95% on the revenue side, budget to actual. We are at 92.2% on the expense side, budget to actual. When I looked at it as of last week, I believe we will be landing around 98 to 102%, which is within the margin of variance that's on the ops committee charters. So we will have a full read on the actuals once we close the books at the September meeting. On the cash side, this is what we have. I wanted to keep the picture the same as it was presented at the ops committee. So as of June 3rd, we had 2 million roughly in the bank. We're expecting about a 20.8 million incoming, 19.4 million outgoing, with a 3.4 million, 3.5 million at the end of the fiscal year. The one line here is 24.3 million, which we call designated or restricted. So These are funds that are sitting with us. Mainly, the big part of that is 17 million in our reserve. And there are also some other buckets for some state funding that's sitting with us, not with the states. So that's your 24.3 million, not including the long-term investments. Go into 25. So what I will do, which is probably a new way to present it for those of you who were not on the ops committee, is start with the 156 million, tell you about the expectations on additional revenues, the expectations on additional expenses, and how we are planning to close the gap if there is a gap, and there is a gap. So think of it as we had the 156.8, that's our starting point. So what we have as added revenue on the left side of that budget, these are the added revenue, 21.2 million that we're expecting to book for fiscal year 25, mainly driven by the advocacy, collective advocacy toward the states. So some of it was natural growth from the state, but the big one is that 8 million that you see there, that was a result of probably the last 60 to 90 day advocacy that we had really with the help and the leadership of President Allen. So we have already on the books with the state of 5 million additional to the budget on the general fund side. And there is a good chance with the markup next week with grant and aid that there will be a one-time up to 5 million coming to the operational side. Being conservative, for that second 5 million, we only put 3 million there with a total of 8 million, knowing that 5 million is already on the books. So just to give you an idea, that's a 20% increase on the operational funding from the state in 1 year. We're also anticipating an 8.2 increase in auxiliary, which is driven by housing and meal plans. And there's also some small additional buckets that we're increasing, like indirect cost on grants, investment income, and such of another 700,000. So that makes up the 21.2 million on the revenue. On the expense side, the big one that we talked about is literally just the challenge we had from last year, which is merit aid driven. These are institutional. So you will hear, especially the new trustees, we may use different terms, but they mean the same thing. So you will hear tuition discounts, merit aid, DSU scholarship, institutional scholarship, allowance, academic and sport allowance. It's all the same. It just depends on who is talking about it. But the bottom line, they are foregone revenues. They are revenues that we book, we never cash, we never bring, because we are giving them back to the students. Number one is our academic discounting or merit aid. That's about 11.3 million. We also about 5.3 million is related to our athletic scholarships. And there are some small buckets like our band, choir, and RAs. So that makes up your 19 million dollar that you will see in the budget as booked, but it never translates to cash. So that's your 7.7 million. Auxiliary contract, 6.1 million. Again, those are your housing and additional housing and meal expenses. There is the salary and benefits, 6.5 million ongoing, mainly driven by our CBAs and our some increases for our non-union. And you have the health and other benefits that are increasing. I'm sure all of you have heard about the increase in health care benefits that the state is facing, which is 27%. So the state is subsidizing a small portion of that, but also passing along $2 million of that to us. So the total increase is 3 million. The state will be subsidizing 1 million of the 2 because that's the portion that they pick up on our payroll side. There is also another 300,000 that's a result of the new mandate for medical parental leave that we have to set up the trust fund for. The one-time expenses is something that I wanted just to show as a separate line because it's a one-time and it's mostly related to our retroactive pay on the CBAs, to your question, Trustee Griffith. So most of our CBAs, 3 of the 4 have a 1-year retroactive. 1 has a 2-year retroactive. So for some of these contracts, we will pay 2 times on fiscal year 25 because we have the 1 year retroactive. One of them is actually 3 times. So that's not an ongoing expense, but it's an expense that we will have to pay in salary and benefit for fiscal year 25. So basically you do the math, the 156.8 starting line, you put on there the 26.6 million in additional costs that I listed, and then you take a good chunk of that through the revenue increase, which is substantial, and you are left with a 5.3 million gap. So we went through an expense management, and if you look around here and you see staff, everyone will be feeling this expense management because everyone has contributed to that bucket of 5.3 million. So the way I explain it, I know some people don't like my analogy, but we had this big truck of 26.6 million. Think of the truck need 5 car spaces to park. 4 of those were cleared through revenue. The last car was removed because of expense management to find space for the big truck to park. So we reduced merit aid. We have a commitment of reducing merit aid from anywhere between 1 to 2 million. We are also went through operational expenses. So we looked at some of our contractual supplies, travel, use, and some payroll savings. So we looked at some long-term vacancies that we will be able to freeze on the books, not just leave vacant, but go actually in the system and defund them for at least the next fiscal year. Yes, sir.
What is the expected, if you know this early, what is the expected enrollment for 2025?
That we have based on?
Yes, that this is based on.
Yes, so this is based on a natural increase of 2.5%, which is very
The
conservative.
numbers. We're at 6,400 right now.
Yeah,
What's it gonna be in 2025?
2.5% additional of that.
No, it's around close to 6,800 somewhere around.
But keep in mind that the 6,400 is the head count. When we do this math, we base it on FTEs. So
Yes.
2 part-timers may be 1 for me from a cash perspective. So 2 things happen. We use the 2.5 natural growth, and we also use the 4%, 4.5% tuition increase that was already approved by the board. So those are the big drivers. And we kept it conservative because we only increased our forecast on tuition and fees from 81 to 82 million. We didn't really increase it that much. The big pickup, as I showed, was 8 million auxiliary revenue. That was the big pickup for us on the revenue side, as second after the state appropriation increase.
And this is year 2 of the 4-year tuition increase.
Correct.
This is year 2, 25. 2025 is year 2.
Yes, starting next fall is year 2.
Do you see the need to adjust all that in light of the loss? The minus 5.3?
No, that's not a loss. We already put it on the book as expense management. So the budget as it stands right now, as you will see, is balanced. Would we have a mid-year adjustment, both to positive or negative? That's something we will monitor for December, because by December, I should know about 80% certainty what our revenue will be.
66.
So this is the proposed budget, but I understand that we were not entertained, or the board will not entertain the motion until the ops committee. But this is what it looks like here. When you look from 156 to 178, it looks like a 13.5% increase, which is huge. However, if you take really what our expense budget would have been, which is 164, and then you compare it to 178, it's about an 8% increase. If you take the 178 and reduce from it the one-time expenses, which is the retroactive pay, because it's really not a fiscal year 25 expense, then it's a 5.8% increase. So that puts it in a more of a natural growth like you will see, which is the 3 to 6% increase in the operational budget. Any questions? Because I think my next slide will be right going into the motion, so I'll stop right here. Do you want me to entertain any questions now, or?
Sure, any other questions?
Okay.
I'm not sure why Anas can't calculate 6,400 times 0.25%, but nonetheless, we love it.
I was on the highway, they want to.
6560, Trustee Griffiths.
6560.
Yes.
1,500 George times out.
We're being thoughtful about how to get there. I'd like to take just one moment. We've already done this at graduation and among our teams, but I just want to take one moment to recognize again Dr. Sandra DeLauder, who is our outgoing provost. I've said it many times. She is quite the academic, quite the administrator, and most importantly, quite the colleague. So I want to thank you again for all your tremendous, tremendous service, and I would like the board to stand up and give her a rousing round of applause. And I will never talk about your affinity for hip hop anymore. Trustee Rossi? Oh, he's clapping. Oh.
I was trying to clap, do a high five, whatever I could do on the screen.
So I just got a few more slides, but I wanted to spend some time just talking to you about this request to the state. I think all of you got the narrative we presented to the JFC, notably Senator Trey Pardee, Senator Darius Brown, Representative Stephanie Bolden, Representative Nnamdi Chukwucha have been very, very helpful and real leaders in this effort, as well as Representative Frank Cook. And the things we need to know is why we think we are the best case. We provide the best value in Delaware's higher education, full stop. That's important for you to know. We will remain the best value, which means high quality, low cost. Significant percentage of our students can't afford college, as we know. And you'll see that that's bigger. Those percentages are much bigger than any other four-year institution here in Delaware and rivals those in the region as well. We've had substantial success in private fundraising. That will continue. In fact, that is continuing through the leadership of Vita Pickram. But COVID monies are gone. So we are really operating for the first time since COVID in an environment without additional capital, or additional resources from the federal government. And then the final case we have continued to make is the Wesley acquisition grew us nicely. But the state needs to remember that without that acquisition, there would have been an $80 to $100 million hole in downtown Dover that we filled and expect that the state should support as a result. And I can tell you that Senator Pardee understands that more than most and has been very helpful in that regard. You all know this, but I just wanted to give you a sense of the pie here. So 70% of our revenue is tuition fees and auxiliary. Other revenue is research, private grants, et cetera, but the state appropriations is only about 20% any given year. And we believe we should be at about 35% moving forward here. These pressures are real. Anas has talked about them. From 17 to 23, you can see inflation is up 24%. You see family median income is only up 6%. And our tuition before last year had remained flat. And I think you've seen the next slide, the next part of this slide too, that the gap between our per student expense and what we actually get in revenue is significant. Here's the one you may not have seen. So we did a ranking, we didn't do a ranking, IPEDS does a ranking of the 40 public HBCUs and their percent of core revenues from state appropriation. We are 33 out of 40. Now, most of those schools, as Dr. Lotto will attest, are system schools. So they're formulaic in nature. But the fact that we provide the kind of quality that I think we all believe we provide, but we're still very low with respect to what we're getting from the state, I think has been eye-opening. And I've been using this presentation for some time now, particularly with those legislators. I think it's making a difference. Here's the good news. Is Jackie in the room? Here's Jackie. Jackie, stand up. We should all give Jackie a big round of applause. This represents a 62% increase in our operating revenue from 2017 from the state, 62%. 20% year over year. You can see the big jump we expect to take from 24 to 25, 44 to 57, which is really going to set us up nicely for this next fiscal. And I can tell you that Jackie has been a real leader there, has given me great counsel. Anas has been helpful too, but I think we're making the case we need to make as we move forward here. So how many people came to the state dinner? Okay, good. So the state dinner was the first of its kind, at least that's what John Carney told me. But since I asked his Secretary of State and not him to do it, it was kind of easy to get done. But we were proud to really honor Jamaican Prime Minister, the Honorable Andrew Holness, and Fortune 500 CEO, Exelon President and CEO Calvin Butler, and both gave them honorary degrees. I can tell you they're both very committed to Delaware State. Jamaica has about 250 master's and doctoral students today. 38 of them graduated this past May. And Exelon is our longest and largest contributor from a corporation in the history of the university. I got that right, B? Okay. There's a little bit of recognition here. President Biden has nominated Lucretia Moultrie to be the member of the State Justice Institute Board. I don't know what that means, save for the fact that she told me that that's the place where the courts go across the state to ask for money. So all you lawyers in the room, get ready. We also had 3 of our faculty, nursing faculty, be named top nurses for 24 by Delaware Today magazine. And is Gwen in the house? Dr. Scott Jones just received a $5 million grant for workforce enhancement. And I want her to talk a little bit about that program. Gwen?
Good afternoon. This grant was a joint effort with the Milford Village. And Milford Village is co-located at the old Milford Hospital. So when they came to us with this proposal, one of the things when we had acquired Wesley had a gerontology program. However, but they did not have any students. So when we were looking at what would be more fruitful. And now we have an opportunity to think about bringing that program back as well. The Geriatric Workforce Enhancement Program grant will allow us to train our students, train the people in the community, the people that also work at the Milford Village, and anyone who's also looking at how you can train the older adults who are dementia related, have some other issues. This is something, because our population here in Delaware is growing, so we'll have an opportunity to work with that population as well. We're going to be giving certificates. So some of this funding will also go to ACE, our adult and continuing education, and we'll be giving certificates to people to work with this population. So this was a joint effort. I'm excited about this. We will also have space at the Milford Village. They're outfitting walls. I don't know where Mr. Pratt is, but I had to get him to, him and Khalid to help me with the blueprint. When they told me, look at the blueprint, I said, I don't know what I'm looking at. So we are outfitting about 17,000 square feet down there for educational purposes, social work, psychology, and nursing. Occupational therapy can also have a place down there. So we're looking forward to this fruitful partnership and more grants.
Right. And it's worth noting that that project started, Sandra, keep me honest here, 4 years ago with a visit Sandra and I took to the old Milford Hospital. The HBCU Philanthropy Symposium is coming up in its 14th year. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Vita Pickram to tell us all about it.
It's also worth noting that it's in the finest city in the state, by the way. It's Milford, Delaware. Point that out.
Spoken like a Milford man. Come to the podium, please.
Absolutely. You say, really?
I ain't saying nothing, man.
That's all we got.
Okay.
Okay,
Right there.
the symposium has grown so much, from three individuals, here representing Delaware State, Cheney and Morgan, 14 years ago, to what it is today. For the first 12 years, it was held here in Dover, Delaware, right across the street. And now it's at the Gaylord in Washington, DC. Last year, we had over 500 individuals to attend, 56 HBCUs, 6 PWIs that actually attended as well, and 3 community colleges. This year, we're on track to do the same. I was really nervous about this year because the hotel's dates got mixed up. And so having an event like this, buttoning up to the 4th of July, it's really scary if people wanted to attend. But we still have the same number of schools attending, flying in to support the event. So we're really excited about it. It's great branding for Delaware State University that we're the leader in convening these schools in this way. So we'll continue, to let you know the outcomes of it. This year, we have a focus on the last day with federal agencies who will assist us in actually engaging these federal agencies to support the university. And as well as Dr. Allen, will be presenting as well and reporting on his report, from the White House Initiative on HBCUs. And Congresswoman Alma Adams has agreed to give us the rights to her name to award an annual award to a leader that impacts the HBCU community each year. And so she will be opening the event on that Monday, the first main day of the event. So we're really excited about it. For those of you who may be interested in attending, please just let us know. But onward and upward for Delaware State University. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pickram. And then finally, Dawn, I don't think Dr. Mosley is here, but the aviation program under the leadership of CJ Charlton took, I think it was about 20 of our aviation students to the United headquarters for a full day of activities. United had a HBCU day, so it was really all the HBCUs who have aviation departments there. And I got a call from the CEO of United, Brett Hart, who serves on the White House Initiative on HBCUs, and he said we showed out and made him really proud and even more compelled with his continued investment in the program. So as I close, I just want to show a brief video that Dawn prepared for that day. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to take questions. I would just end by saying you've seen the athletic transformation presentation. You've seen where I think we are fiscally, and you see our programs continue to grow. We are still soaring in the right way for Delaware State University. So happy to take any questions.
Hearing none, thank you, sir.
Okay.
Onward and upward, sir. Thank you. There are a few committees in need of the full board to consider motions. So we'll start with Audit and ERM Committee. And it is that time of year again where we take a look at where we are with respect to student health insurance and the renewal, and whether the market has been kind or unkind to us for this year. And I think we'll be happy to say that comparatively speaking, and General Counsel will walk us through the information that we need, but comparatively speaking, I think we are very competitive when it comes to our wraparound services, if you will, in terms of health insurance for our wonderful students. And there will also be some information about a fee that will be introduced also by General Counsel. Briefly, ma'am, thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. So I will give a brief presentation.
You need to go to the.
Thank you. I will give a brief presentation today regarding student health insurance coverage. So as the chairman mentioned, we continue to be very competitive in a market where student health insurance costs tend to be quite high. So I had our insurance broker run a quick chart of other colleges and universities in the area that offer health insurance for their students. And that will give you a general idea of what most students face when they seek to obtain health insurance coverage. Here at BSU, I'm glad to report that we continue to have very healthy students who are really being responsible in the way in which they're using their health insurance coverage, which is resulting in a low premium versus loss rate. So we are able to offer our students a very competitive rate. So you will see that for our medical insurance this year, it remains the same. Our students are able to obtain health insurance coverage for $895. With regard to our dental and vision, the rates have actually gone down. Our United Healthcare is the insurance provider that we work with. Their business rating has been changed, and they also were able to adjust their commercial business standards, which enabled them to reduce costs related to dental and vision. So you'll see that our students, compared to last year, will experience cost savings in each line. Now, the chairman mentioned that there could be an administrative fee, which we intend to introduce to the board. However, because I believe that conversation is more appropriate for executive session, I'd like to present the health insurance rates for vote by the board. And then when we go into an executive session, Mr. Benatti and I will be able to discuss the additional fee that we're proposing, explain why, which is why it's occurring in executive session. So if the chairman is prepared I'm prepared to take any questions, but if the chairman is prepared to take a motion to approve the rates themselves. Trustee Griffiths.
Does the student health insurance cover athletes?
They actually have their own policy.
They have their own policy?
Yes.
One player gets hurt.
Exactly.
Covered by this.
Exactly. So that's part of the reason we don't want our general student population to incur the cost of student athletes who may have more health insurance needs based on their athletic participation. So they have a separate policy that they have. Most of our students that are covered under our medical insurance, the highest cost that's being incurred is prescriptions. They're really just being responsible about taking care of themselves. Any other questions?
Thank you, General Counsel.
Thank you.
So the full board is prepared to hear a motion on approval of the insurance rates as they have been presented and are on the screen by General Counsel. We have such a motion.
Yeah. Go ahead, I'll second.
I'll move it, Mr. Chairman, that we accept the proposal as presented by General Counsel Moultrie.
I'll second. Thank you. We have a motion. We also have a second. All in favor of said motion indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any against indicate by saying no. Hearing none, the motion carries, and the student insurance rates for the academic year of 2025 have been accepted by the full board. Thank you, General Counsel. Very good. We're gonna move operations forward. If we may, one moment, please.
Sorry, Mr. Chair.
Does Chip need to?
Trustee Allen has his hand.
Pardon me. Sorry, John. John, we're prepared to hear from you, sir. Pardon us.
Can you hear me? That was my approval of the motion.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. You're properly accounted
A
for.
little slow in taking it down.
Thank you.
Plus,
Thanks,
I was
Bob.
looking for a brown hand.
John, it takes a while for your internet to travel all the way to Delaware from Arizona.
Oh, sorry about that.
Actually, your connectivity is better than when you're in Delaware, by the way. Oh.
It was Sussex County, just to let you know, just a reminder.
All right, Operations Committee will be next. Moving that forward, I believe Trustee Rossi may have to leave us, so we want to move the Operations Committee up. And so I will defer to Chair Bernadette Dorsey-Watt.
Thank you. So I think we all heard from our president, the challenges that lie ahead, what we've done so far, and then we heard from our CFO. Right now, we'd like to see if there's any questions from our fellow board members. Any questions on the 2025 budget? There are no questions, then I would entertain a motion to approve the 2025 full year budget.
We've heard from the chairwoman of the Operations Committee. Do we have a motion?
She just.
Go ahead, Vice Chair Herron, please.
I motion to approve the 2025 budget. A second.
The motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any against indicate by saying no. Very good. The motion carries, and the 2025 budget as presented is now part of the record. Thank you all. I just want to say really quick, and I want to again emphasize what Trustee Rossi said earlier about the hard work that's gone in. Want to recognize the president and the CFO for the work, again, as Trustee Rossi did. The CFO has introduced us to a term, not sure I saw it before the CFO, which is treasury management. I didn't see it in connection with this particular institution. I see it now. I've heard it in other settings, but he calls it treasury management. And that's the work, I would say, it's synonymous for the work that's been put in since he's come into the fold. And here's what I captured about what I've seen from Nas and his team since he's come in. I've seen the adoption really of a system of record, which we didn't have before. I've seen the movement toward monthly reconciliations, which I don't think existed or were undertaken prior to his arrival. I've seen the efforts in that respect with concern to the consideration of the reconciliations to timely deliver materials to the external auditors. You can't do that unless you reconcile the books in a timely fashion. I've seen the work and dedication around accounts receivables with the input, the profound input, frankly, of Trustee Ridgway. I've also seen the work that has been done by the CFO with our provost and Mr. Boyle around really trying to understand what our margins are. What it really cost us to deliver what we deliver. Talking about that return on investment or the value proposition that we are trying to understand and trying to make sure that the programs we employ are performing the way they should and trying to augment where we need to. I've seen the work around expense management, or we've seen the work around expense management, which I think in FY 2024 has showed what kind of fruit can be born because of that. And also with respect to collections. And I have to again acknowledge my peer, my respected peer, Trustee Ridgway, for his input in that respect as well. So that's treasury management. And I'm not saying it's perfect, but I'm saying it's a hell of an effort. And I just want to just wanted to underscore what Chip had to contribute earlier. And thank you, Bernadette. Thank you, everybody involved. I just wanted to acknowledge everyone for the work that's been done. And again, thank you. Thank you, John. Back to Governance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Couple of preliminary items before we get to the item at hand. As you know, we had 4 vacancies on the Board of Trustees. 2 of them have now been filled, thank goodness. And we're waiting for the governor because 2 are governor appointed, 2 are board elected, So that's why, we were able to complete your entry. We're still waiting for the governor to work on his 2. One of those has to be a Kent County resident and the other one is unrestricted. So that's kind of where we stand in terms of filling the vacancies, which is the obligation of the governance committee to make sure that happens. So I don't bug Ray Lewis a whole lot. He's in the governor's office of boards and commissions, but I give him a call every once in a while, and I'm pretty sure the chairman does too as well, to just find out how things are going, and we'll see where that ends up. The next thing on the agenda is a yearly item that we get involved with, and that is election of officers. The officers of the board right now are Chairman Tice, Debbie Harrington is the first vice chair, John Allen is the second, Tamara Stoner is the secretary, and we don't have a treasurer. That particular office is vacant right now, but we have someone who's agreed to do that work for 2025. We're on a fiscal year, so the officers' terms are 1 year. That's different than your 6-year terms and what I was explaining to you all during the break about unexpired time that you have to serve before your first 6-year term begins. But anyway, so right now, the governance committee is going to put a motion on the table for a slate of officers for starting July 1st, 2024 and ending June 30th, 2025. Are there any questions or any comments? Oh, one other thing. One of the rules in the rules for the governance committee is that we can accept motions from the floor if 2 board members vote for that motion from the floor. So we send out General Counsel Moultrie send a reminder out about the election at this meeting and asking if you wanted to run yourself or if you wanted to nominate somebody. Again, a nomination from the floor has to be with 2 members of the board. So having said all that, before we call for a vote on a motion, are there any motions? Are there any questions on the slate of officers for 2025, beginning July 1st? Seeing no.
I couldn't hear. Was someone saying something I couldn't hear?
I was asking if there were any motions from the floor for officer positions for the Board of Trustees.
Everybody.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I did, but then I just heard something in the background. It just might be someone. That's okay. So I just had I guess a point of clarification, because we said that we can accept motions from the floor as well as folks can self-nominate themselves for the positions. And I did have a conversation after the our governance committee meeting. At that time, there weren't any nominations or self-nominations from the board. And having had a conversation after that meeting, I'm not sure what the process should be. But so I will do this, and general counsel can correct me if I'm out of order. That Trustee Griffiths has stated his desire to serve as the second vice chair of the board, which is the position that I currently hold. And as I shared with general counsel as well as Trustee Griffiths before our governance committee meeting, that if anyone had any interest in serving as the second vice president, that I would step aside in that role, because I have been in the role. I've also, you mentioned earlier, Chairman mentioned earlier, I serve on 5 committees as well. And I always stated that if someone was interested in learning the role, stepping into the role, assisting, that I would step aside and it would not be contested. So with that being said, I would make a motion as from the floor for Trustee Griffiths as the second vice chair.
He made,
He's made a motion. Two trustees must support that motion in order for trustee Griffiths to be considered.
Two other,
One in addition?
one in addition or two other?
The bylaws read that when there is nominations may be made for the floor, it's supported by 2 trustees. So there must be support by 2 other trustees.
but I think Debbie's asking, does the second count as one of those 2?
It can.
Yes.
That's the answer to your question. You all right?
Yes, we good. We got him, second.
Well, I guess for proper form, I think if that's gonna be the motion, yes, then you be the second. And then you have your 2 trustees in support of trustee Griffith's nomination as second vice chair.
A second. Wilma,
Not
Wilma
Wilma.
second.
Okay, then Dr. Trustee Mashu has second.
Yes.
Still, are you able to capture what's going on?
I just put.
John and.
And just to clarify the record, I think trustee Allen, is it your intention to no longer be considered as the slate on the slate as proposed by the governance committee?
That is correct.
So just to clarify, the slate is now for chair, the current chairman Tice, for vice chair, Dr. Debbie Harrington, for second vice chair, we have trustee Griffiths, and then the secretary and the treasurer are both recommended by the chair and President Allen. So I'll let the 2 of them speak to that so that we're clear on the entire slate.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have both agreed to recommend trustee Watley as treasurer.
And trustee Stoner
Trustee Stoner, sir.
Sorry,
as secretary.
Secretary Stoner, continue.
The only caveat I would put on trustee Watley's nomination is that it would be contingent upon approval from JP Morgan Chase's compliance. So with that caveat, I make the motion.
Second.
So then we need a motion to approve the slate as presented.
Does everybody understand the slate? Tice, Harrington, Griffiths, Stoner, and Watley in that order, okay?
Yeah, I make a motion to approve the slate.
I second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that the slate of officers for the period July 1, 2024 until June 30th, 2025 be approved as presented with Chairman Leroy Tice, first vice chair Debbie Harrington, second vice chair Norman Griffiths, secretary Tamara Stoner, treasurer Bernadette Dorsey Watley. That's the slate that's been voted on. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carried. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for everyone and your willingness to serve. Welcome, Trustee Griffiths. Thank you, John. And obviously, thank you for all that you do.
I'm not going anywhere.
Arizona kind of is somewhere.
Next board retreat in the winter.
Okay.
We love it and thank you. I think that I'd like to think that I thank you in person and in personal phone calls as much as I possibly can. Because you and others who will go nameless right now just serve to enrich the board and personally keep me learning So, and I hope you will continue teaching us and boxing me in the ears when necessary. And thank you, John. I know I could hear from the other John too on that. But it's serious, and it's the only way I grow personally, and it's the only way the institution benefits if you guys are here and not participating, but engaged. And I think there's a difference. Which brings me to the second matter to consider, and that's there's a proposed resolution to combine the operations and innovation and sustainability committees. And I'll tell you the reason why. And again, it didn't come from me. The resolution is there.
Actually, it was removed
It
from.
was removed for today?
Yes.
Okay. So let me tee it up for the retreat then. Okay? And Bernadette, if that's okay. And again, this isn't Ipsy Dixit because I said so, because I thought so. It was because I'm not only hearing, I'm listening to my trustees. And when I see members from the committee say, well, I think some of this is a bit redundant. We have a foundation. Hello, lady down there at the end of the table. Our foundation chairwoman. And if you look at the makeup of the foundation board, you will be wowed, obviously, by the talent and the commitment by that talent that's on them. So trying to optimize the use of folks' time, trying to be as agile as possible. And again, focusing this board on what matters. Just giving the folks who have spoken to me about it the opportunity to perhaps streamline. You heard John just complain about being on 5 committees. And that's a reality. When I look at the matrix, there are some folks that are on 4 and 5 committees. And the question is, first of all, are those just informational sessions? Or are those truly strategic sessions? That's the first question. I think we'll address that at the board retreat. And then as it relates to this specific committee, and Bernadette is not necessarily happy about it, but just the consideration of things financial, and the report outs from the foundation, they can report, that report out could be given during the operations committee. That's what I'm gonna be asking folks to consider. And we'll do it at the retreat when we're talking about, how agile are we in responding to the fast-paced changes in higher education. So we'll consider it all as a part of that conversation, if that's okay. Is that okay, Dr. Chair?
That's fine.
Okay, very good. So we'll consider it then. Announcements. HBCU Philanthropy Symposium, which was previously spoken about and is the brainchild of Theda Pickram. Please attend if you are able. I certainly will do my best to get there. Board of Trustees retreat, we're looking at July 19. I know some folks have some challenges. Again, always looking out for our time, making this one day and not multiple days, as we have done in the past. And we're just going to make it to use the word robust and fun-filled, packed, however many hours, but over the course of one day. And we are looking at the 19th, I believe, is our separate. Is that accurate, Secretary Stoner?
Right.
Chairman Tice, where's the location?
Yes, sir.
The location.
We haven't worked that out yet. I suspect we'll be on campus. I suspect.
Do we know what time?
I mean,
9
typically
o'clock.
8:30 start time, maybe 8:30 breakfast, 9 o'clock start time. Rough suggestions. Does it interfere with a chicken dinner you have in the morning or something? I'm sorry, that's a politician's reference. That's a reference. Hold on. Let me give y'all context. I always tell the politician in waiting that she has too many chicken dinners to attend. So
That's right.
I was saying that did it interfere with our schedule?
Yeah.
Right. So,
No.
I'm sorry, jokes always need texture and context.
Dr. Mashu is saying a little something different.
I said it interferes with my hair appointment.
Well, legacy.
You're laughing.
You're entitled.
At some point, we may talk about the Michoud legacy.
You asked.
We don't want that to be a part of the legacy, but I'm just saying. No, but we'll talk about it. We'll have more
No,
details.
no.
Right, Stone, we'll have more details about the 19th.
Sir.
Okay, and we'll get them out, relatively quickly. And we're working on the agenda as well. Fair breakfast, September 27th. Homecoming, October 5th, Founder's Day, February 6th, and, well, we're a year out, but commencement, May 9th. So I'm assuming we need you to calendar accordingly, right? Hopefully that's not a. I never thought retirement, I would be worried so much about Dr. Michoud's calendar. But in any event, anything else? Oh, that's right, July 25th, by the way, we're gonna have a Sussex County State of the University. That's gonna be at Bayside. Is that accurate? If you don't know anything about Bayside, it's a wonderful place to be. So we hope, it's a Selbyville address, but it's essentially. And it's a beautiful facility. I just happen to know somebody who lives down there. Coach Carlick and I are gonna be there with bells on, right, Coach? And we're gonna be ushering everybody in. Make sure that. Oh, last but not least, sorry, and pardon me, it was not an oversight. There's public, if there's anybody available for public comment, I know we had one individual to sign up for public comment, which is a 2-minute limit. Ms. Stoner, do we have anyone for public comment presenting?
Mr. Chairman, this is Rainey Brown.
Okay, can you repeat the name again, please?
It's Rainey Brown.
Okay. Ms. Brown, are you with us?
Yes, I am.
Very
Good
good.
afternoon, everyone. So my name is Rennie Brown, as was mentioned, and I am a student currently in the Greater Antilles program. I'm based in Jamaica, and I'm a part of the EdD program. In March, when I came to the meeting, I discussed that there was a challenge of how the increase in fees were handled. And I got some information that was not the most accurate. And coming out of that, I met with President Allen and VP Anas. That was on April 25th. Subsequent to that, I have not gotten a feedback, and I have started to engage external persons to see if I could lodge a complaint to get the matter handled. That's still, well, I've gotten some feedback in terms of how to deal with it, but for 2 of the institutions, particularly the governor's office, they have asked that I speak to the board first and then take other action if the complaint is not handled, right? So I am back at the board, just asking that the situation be looked at. President Allen and the VP of Finance and as they're aware of it. And for the board members that were at that meeting, they might be aware of what is happening, right? So I'm just asking that the matter be looked at when you get into your executive session and that a feedback be provided to say what it is. We as students will accept whatever it is the administration says because the administration is the administration. But to leave the matter undealt with, that's unacceptable.
Ms. Brown, thank you, and we will acknowledge the full assembly here, the full board acknowledges your concern, and we further acknowledge that there will be a reply. And thank you for bringing the matter to the full board's attention. Ms. Stoner, there are no other parties signed up for public comment, correct?
No further comments.
Very good. The board will now the board will entertain a motion, if there's no other business, for us to move into executive session to discuss personnel, legal, and other items.
Mr. Chairman, before you make
Yes.
that motion,
Yes.
I failed to offer our heartfelt gift to Dr. DeLauder from the entire staff, executive team here at the university.
Thank you. Again, we will entertain now a motion to move into executive session to discuss legal.
Chair,
Yes.
I move that we move into, executive session. With this, until the, personnel.
Second. Motion has been moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We're now in executive.